NASCAR's latest TV ratings are in, and they're younger than ever. Plus, Richard Petty calls out road courses and says they're not really NASCAR. Welcome back to the Breaking Bob channel. Hope y'all are doing well on this Tuesday night. I drove through a hurricane on my way home from work just to make this video. So off the principle alone, I do make the effort to put out content daily on NASCAR and all motorsports. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. We're always talking about it on a daily basis here. And without further ado, let's get into it because some news breaking last night. Richard Petty on he does a post-race podcast. The fact that man at his age is just grinding is impressive on the fact. But we'll talk about that here in a few. Let's get into some of the nitty gritty we talked about at the beginning, ratings. And let's start with IndyCar, because IndyCar gets a positive shout out as they were racing at Gateway, Worldwide Technology Raceway, on Sunday night, an oval race just a couple weeks after the Indy 500. And let me tell you, Sunday night races do work apparently under the lights. Over 1 million viewers on main Fox for IndyCar. 88% increase from last year, almost 500, a little over 500,000 on that race. So almost doubling their viewership on a Sunday night on Father's Day at St. Louis on an oval. People were kind of wondering, will it work with the time frame there on Father's Day? Not a ton of competition, though, that night of Father's Day. And so I think it really goes to show, under the lights, oval racing, IndyCar. Listen to your fans. We might have something cooking there. Oval racing, it works. And leapfrogging off that, the motorsports boom continues. F1 had good ratings as well, but NASCAR is the main priority here as always. And over 2 million viewers for Amazon Prime with their race this weekend at Mexico City. Not only that, over 1 million viewers on the post-race broadcast. That's the most they've had so far in their 4 races. And sandwiched in between that tweet there, the youngest broadcast that Amazon has had to this date, and the youngest broadcast NASCAR has had since 2017. Now, you probably are thinking, well, okay, cool, that's great, but if you pay any sort of attention to sports media ratings, and you probably have if you are any sort of viewer to this channel, you know that 18 to 39 demographic is coveted. That younger demographic is always what the ratings or the TV networks want. And so for NASCAR to slowly be trending down into the younger demographic with Amazon really goes to show that streaming might just be the future after all for NASCAR and all sports. Couple that with that post-race getting over 1 million views. You're retaining over half your audience for the post-race at Mexico City. I think it goes to show that people are really resonating with the Amazon Prime coverage. It feels authentic. They're really passionate about the sport, and they're giving it the due diligence and letting those stories be told on their networks. And yes, there is always that, well, they're on streaming. They don't have the network, that they have the time constraints. They can be free and do what they want. But that being said, it goes to show that if you put in the effort, it will be warranted. A lot of people will notice, and NASCAR fans, we've been begging for it for years. Just a great broadcast. It feels like this is the nostalgia. I get 2000s vibes watching it. But huge nonetheless as Amazon moves into their last race of the 5-race summer deal that they have with NASCAR for 7 years as part of this new media deal. We won't be without them, though, too long. A lot of those people from the Amazon coverage are going to be moving on to the TNT side for 5 races. And in a few weeks, we'll have Iowa in the summer stretch of the races. I got to double check. I believe that's on TNT this year. But regardless of that fact, Iowa, for the second year on the Cup Series schedule, is a sellout, 2 for 2, and now it's under 40,000 on the capacity. But regardless, it's in a market that fairly underserved for the most part in that Midwest region, with a lot of fans in that area. Racing just is very, very popular in that region. So you get a hungry fan base for racing, great facilities at Iowa. Hy-Vee, especially with IndyCar the last decade or so, has really just poured money into reviving that speedway. It feels like from what it felt like could be on the heels of the Chicagoland, Kentucky contingency. Instead, no, Iowa is booming with their second straight Cup date, even if the first time they got it was kind of a contingency plan because I believe Canada fell through, and so Iowa took that date last minute. But regardless, you had the track full last year. Now, I'm sure half of that was Ryan Blaney's whole posse out there that, of course, the broadcast loved to talk about when he won in that inaugural Iowa Cup race. But no, it's great to see another sellout on the NASCAR Cup Series schedule. Sometimes those smaller, intimate venues you see at North Wilkesboro and Rockingham, especially the last couple of years, have really, really shown that the fan experience has just been sometimes less is more. In our main story today, I teased at the beginning of the video, we've kind of seen some discourse on social media since Shane Van Gisbergen won at Mexico on Sunday, locking himself into the playoffs. That is similar to Harrison Burton at Daytona last year. SVG came into Mexico 33rd in the point standings there. Basically, win and you're in. If you don't win, you're not even going to be close to the playoffs in points. But SVG, of course, brought in for his road course abilities. This was the plan all along, especially with counting Mexico 4 of the next 9 races on the schedule being some sort of road course variety in NASCAR. SVG was a big favorite to land one of those playoff spots one way or another. And of course, the format has brought some criticism, always at times, one way or another. Richard Petty, the latest to criticize it on his YouTube channel with Petty Family Racing. They were doing their Mexico post-race and then Q&A. The fact that that man is the age he is, and he is still so active in the community and sharp as a tool. When you watch those videos and he's reeling off dates back in Toronto and these, it's incredible the knowledge that he still has and how sharp he is. But he had some interesting comments on the heels of SVG locking himself into the playoffs and also a shot at road courses overall.
The way they got this thing fixed, if you win and you're in, that can't be right. From the standpoint that you got somebody, like say, that's 30th in the points that's going to make the playoffs. Hey, man, what happened to the guy that's 15th or 16th or 18th? Been running good, finished good everywhere. You're making a championship situation by winning a road course, which is not really NASCAR to begin with. So from that standpoint, I think they're going to have to jockey around and change some of this kind of stuff.
Ooh, Richard, don't hold back. That is some choice words regardless. And I think for the first half of that, I was with him. He had a point there where somebody in 33rd does not really belong in the championship conversation. That I do agree with, even though 18th probably shouldn't either. We'll get to that in a second. But then he gets into those comments. Well, the road course shouldn't have any ability in NASCAR's championship decision there. Richard, we've been racing at road courses since 1956. You of all people know that. I'm very surprised, I guess, at those comments there. Road course racing has been a part of NASCAR since the beginning of the sport. And yes, of course, ovals are the foundation of the sport, the bread and butter. It is what makes NASCAR NASCAR. But I would argue so does the variety of the tracks on the schedule. Now that dirt's not on the track, you still got road courses, street courses, short tracks, intermediate ovals, super speedways with drafting style tracks. It seems like every single week it's another challenge, and it really showcases the driver's abilities, especially those ones that are multi-versatile. Someone like Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, they're really, really strong. But even going back in the day, Tony Stewart open wheel ability, his road course dominance, Jeff Gordon showed it at times. I'm a little surprised to hear that from Richard Petty of all people. But let's go back to his comments about the playoff format, because I do think there is something to that. He was talking about how 33rd doesn't deserve to be in the playoff conversation. Well, realistically, though, somebody in 18th or 17th, do they really need to be in that championship conversation at the year's end as well? And I know Joey Logano last year. It's the perfect example of it, where if you're winning, you're in, even in that somewhat competitive area, but not really when you look at how the season stacked up. But don't be mad at SVG. Be mad at the system, which I think Petty is. He's just frustrated. I think that the winning you're in system is how it is. But you could argue that someone like SVG dominating a race, maybe even 2 at road courses, that's almost more valuable than somebody like a Kyle Busch or a Chris Buescher who, here or there may have top 5 speed at a few tracks, but overall they're running 15th or 20th most weeks. What's the difference between that and someone like SVG who's running 25th or 30th at some of those tracks and then dominating these road courses? I think it's just really perspective and how you want to look at it. Personally, if you ask me, and nobody did, but you're watching this video, so congratulations, you get to hear it. I think they should just go back to the normal chase format originally, where it's a 10-race format. The top 10 realistically make it. You can make some provisions if you want, one way or the other, but it's a 10-race, basically mini season for a championship there, the last 10 races of the season. Of course, it's not going to probably sell on TV with the same excitement that the elimination format that you see, and potentially some rumors that we could even see a 3-race championship round, which I'm all here for. Spread out longer, more races in the championship to determine it. I think we need a little bit more of a sample size. But regardless of that, let me know your thoughts down below. Richard Petty's interesting comments on the playoff format and those road course digs, it sounds like. Let me know what you think about that. Plus, Iowa selling out and those ratings across all motorsports. It seems like motorsports boom in North America is really happening right now. It's great for all series, if you ask me. But I appreciate you for watching. If you made it this far, make sure to like this video. If you like what you saw, subscribe to the channel for more NASCAR and motorsports content here at Breaking Bob. I'll see you next time for whatever video comes out. Never know what's going to happen in the NASCAR motorsports world. Stay tuned for more. Thanks for watching.